distributed. If there's any additions or corrections,
Correction. On the perpetual fund amount, the 4 is supposed to be a dollar sign, unfortunately. I'll make that change.
That was the interest you got.
can I have a motion to accept the minutes?
Yes, I make a motion we accept the minutes as corrected.
As correct.
Second, okay. They have been approved. David? George, do you have a fresh
Just
report?
update the group, historical, one always gets broken down, expenditure and income sheet, but I'll give you a accumulation from when first beginning of the year until the 20th of this particular month. We've received $23,336 as income. We have spent $18,156. Excuse me, $18,100.56, leaving in the checking account as of this evening $5,235.44, and in our perpetual fund, $13,467.
Do we have some committee reports? Martha, do you have any? Okay. First thing I'd like to talk about is bread. We've started back baking bread for the fall and winter season, and we have a nice list of bread bakers. We always need more. And today, this Wednesday, our bread bakers are going to be Ruth Leach, Marilyn Maroney, Doug Wolf, and Carol McIntyre. And they each bring at least 2 loaves of bread, and it's just wonderful. We have people standing in line at the door when we open at 10 o'clock, waiting for that good fresh bread. We have some new museum T-shirts in. They're the same as the ones we had last year, but it's a new stock. And if you haven't seen it, why, Pat has hers on.
Did you get a picture of that?
Yeah, no.
We also have our calendars that were mentioned last month, I believe. We have 13 pictures, historical pictures. We have history of the island, history of the Historical Society, and they make wonderful gifts here at the museum. And our latest edition is a Christmas card, and it has a picture of the city pier inside of the Christmas tree. And I hope you'll all come by and look at it up here at the front before you leave. It's very handsome. And there are 10 in with envelopes in the package for $7. And we have a new supply of our Tampa Triangle book, which was a bestseller last year before Christmas. It's just a great book to give to anybody who's ever been on the island or enjoyed it or loved it, or it's just, they're great stories and they're short and nice little things to read before you go to bed at night. And then we have our author's book here tonight, and I'm sure you'll hear more about that very soon. Now, the other thing is that in November and December we have our festivals that occur on the island, and if you haven't been here before or done this, taken part in it, why the Historical Society has a booth that we put up at 10. And we take a lot of our old pictures and a lot of our scrapbooks down there that have also pictures they took, and we sell our items. And we try to get all of our members to sign up for a couple of hours for each festival, just either Saturday or Sunday. And I'm going to pass these around. This is for the festival at Holmes Beach City Hall on November the 8th and 9th. And this one is the Art League Festival in the same location on December 6th and 7th. And it's a lot of fun to put in, and you always work with at least 2 other people and have a good time and meet a lot of people. So I'd like to pass these around while you're all sitting here.
I'll let you know, a lot of you know that next Saturday is Make a Difference Day. And that's when people are encouraged to get out and volunteer. We have a lot of wonderful volunteers right here in the Historical Society. And on Friday, we'd like to have a coffee for our volunteers. It's going to be at 10 o'clock. Hopefully we'll get to call everybody, but if you know you're a volunteer, you volunteer at the museum, you bake bread for sale at the museum, you work at the festivals, or in March when we have our open house, you know that you go and work a few hours helping out that over at the Pine Avenue site. You know that you are invited to the 10 o'clock coffee. There's a group of hostesses that will see that you're greeted and treated to some nice coffee cakes and coffee. This is Friday morning at 10 o'clock at the museum, this coming Friday this week. The people who work at the museum, I think the coffee will, and the social part will be at the very beginning at 10 o'clock. But people who work at the museum specifically may want to be there because after we have the social coffee and cake and whatever, we're going to discuss things like how to work the cash register or any other questions, suggestions that you may have that would be helpful to the other volunteers or helpful to the people who are actually coordinating volunteers. So hopefully we'll see the volunteers there on Friday, and I think a lot of you are sitting right here as I speak.
Is there any new business? Okay. Well, then I guess we'll get on to our speaker tonight, who really doesn't need an introduction for a lot of us. She's our own Frances Beard. When Frances first came to the island in the early 50s, she and her husband Joe settled here permanently in 1982. She's retired from real estate, a China painter, and she plays golf at Key Royale. Her book, Nothing to Lose, is a murder mystery set on Anna Maria Island in Kentucky. It's fictional, but the places are real. And I read it, and it's wonderful. So please give Frances a nice hand.
First, I just wanted to tell you all, I am no public speaker, and Marilyn told me that there may be Centerville people here. So, I'm going to just pretend that you all are in my living room, and we are just going to have a little chat. So, if anything comes to mind that you'd like to ask, and you want to keep me on track, just like if you were at home. And Carolyn told me when I talked to her on the phone that she thought it would be a good idea if I talked to you first about some of my early experiences on the island, because I have been coming a long time. And I thought, well, that's probably a good idea. Because as I look around here, all of us really are islanders, aren't we? Some of us been here a long time, some are fairly new, but we all have that in common, and every one of us has a tale that we could tell how we got here. And mine's probably not a lot different than anybody else's, but Carolyn asked me to tell it, so I think I will. My grandmother's brother was a builder, and I guess a sort of an entrepreneur, or maybe a speculator, might be a better word. And I think in his young life he might have maybe lost half a dozen fortunes. Maybe not a real fortune, but his monetary life kind of went like this. And after World War II, he somehow ended up here on Anna Maria. He built houses in New Jersey and in Miami and all everywhere, but he ended up in Anna Maria, and he thought it was wonderful. and he bought some lots down on South Harbor Drive, where the area down in there where the Catholic Church is. And he talked my father's brother into taking one of these lots and putting a house on it. Now, I understand houses in older. This was really a fishing cabin. And my Uncle Charlie was a pretty special person, and he was very, very family oriented. And so all of us poor relations were offered the opportunity to use this wonderful piece of property if we could get here. So take that opportunity, I did. And my first trip coming to Anna Maria was in the early 50s. And I was young and didn't know where I was going. Came across that wooden bridge and went boom, 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 all the way across. And we get to the island and start up from Bradenton Beach. And there's really nothing much here. It's all overgrown, and it's just, I don't know what to compare it to, except I'm sure a lot of you have also been out west, and the corn's higher than the car, and you're driving by, and all of a sudden you see a little sign, and it tells you that the Jones place is over that way. Well, that's the way the island was to me at that time. I don't recall anything coming up from that bridge. As I have tried to remember, I don't recall anything. I'm sure there must have been something. But it was just a sandy shell road and overgrown on the sides, and you came up, and I got to Holmes Beach, and the roads ran like that. And all of a sudden, here's this sign in the middle of the road that says C, the letter C, C, Marinelle, arrow, something like that. So that was what Uncle Charlie had told us to look for, was a sign that said C, Marinelle. So we went in, turned in the road, and there was Uncle Charlie's little cabin, and next door to it was the trailer that his uncle had put on there. And on down on the bay was this wonderful house. Now, I've never seen anything really like this, because I came from Kentucky, and we had brick edifices with columns and windows and upstairs and all this sort of thing. This was a long, low affair with windows all the way across the front of the water. And it was a real home, let me tell you. It was wonderful. It had air conditioning. And I was totally taken with this place. And I could see the possibilities just like my grandmother's brother could see. But then we went back to Uncle Charlie's cabin. And it's still there, by the way. It's been added on to a little bit, but it's still now on South Harbor Drive. And it had a kitchen that was maybe twice as big as that table. You could almost touch both sides if you went out like this. And that was on the front of the house. And then there was a living room behind that. That was maybe 12 or 14. Had a sofa and a chair, no television, no air conditioning, a table. I mean, we're talking Spartan here. He had two very small bedrooms and had enough room for a bed. That's about it. And a bath. No porch. No way to get out of the heat. And no way to get any air, really, because there was no air conditioning in this place. So those were the two examples that I remember of that first trip here. And Uncle Charlie's place was such, I was so delighted to be here because I couldn't have come if he hadn't been generous and let us have it just I happened to be related to him. But that is about how it was at that time. The dream was coming of building the beauty, but the old stuff was here. So, as I was thinking about this, I thought maybe I would let my characters tell you how I felt about it. Because in my book, it's a mystery, as Marilyn told you. And the two characters are looking for all the clues to solve this dilemma that we found themselves in. And so, come on in. This is just my living room. Now, where was I? They were coming home from a very busy day, looking up things and hunting things down. And I won't tell you what it is that they've done, because this little interlude here happens about halfway through the book. But they had left Bradenton and they were coming across the causeway. And we've all done this many, many times. Tonight the moon was shining over the bay, and it was so quiet you could hear the water softly lapping the shore. Peaceful, said Mary Sue. Mary Sue is the protagonist. She's the real estate agent who gets in all this trouble. That's why we came to the island in the first place, says her husband. Well, the beaches and the lifestyle too, she sighed. That's why I stayed. I came because the sign said to the beaches, and that's the lane I was in. It was an accident, really. The bridge was up, and a lone sailboat under power went south towards Sarasota. The coastline of the island is especially pretty at night, said Sam. You are not aware of how built up it is when the traffic is gone and the people are home. I suppose that one day it will be full of high-rises like Longboat Key, but I hope not in my lifetime. Of course, along the Gulf at Mid-Island there are some condos, but they're mostly limited to 2 stories. Still, the city of Anna Maria's single-family residency appeals to me. Mary Sue replied, I know, I've sold lots of those condos over the years. For couples with a northern residence, a condo is a reasonable answer, but it's not a lifestyle suited for me. She watched boat pass under the bridge and began to descend, and the bridge began to descend. When the island is full, what will we do? I've often wondered that. I guess this must be how those early settlers felt when new people came and wanted to make changes like paved streets, sewers, and city water. I remember visiting here when there was the old wooden bridge to the mainland at what is Bridge Street on the south end of the island. Streets were mostly sand, but Gulf Drive was shell. Septic tanks and bottled water were the rule. Well water for toilet flushing was that awful brown palmetto color. Mary Sue wrinkled her nose. Those early settlers were a hardy bunch. I like a bit more civilization than what you described, but I bet the peace and tranquility was wonderful. Along with the no-see-ums and the mosquitoes, said Sam. So, that's my entrance to the island. It didn't matter to me, I liked it. I loved it, and that's why as soon as Joe and I could work it out, we came. We're here. My parents, who later on, they lived in Key Royal, and Joe and I came in we bought 1976. Let's get this date right here, because he corrects me every now and then I say it wrong. But we knew we were going to retire here, and we actually came in 1983. Now, that's my introduction that Carolyn asked me to talk to you about, and the rest of the time, I'd like to talk to you about the book, unless you have any questions. Yes?
Whose home was that big one that you talked about out there?
C. Marinell. The man's name was C. I think his name was Charlie. And I don't believe it's there anymore. I think it's been torn down. But, you know, there's been a lot of construction down there and changes on South Harbor Drive. And this is at the far end, near where the Catholic Church is. And I think they bought all that property. They bought it all up.
Thank you.
Anyway, about my book, I've been writing in some form or another almost all my life. Diaries or letters or one thing and another. When you have a big family, you really don't have a lot of time to do anything extensive like this, but I've done newsletters and that sort of thing. If I ever had an office in an organization, it wasn't like Maryland, I was always a secretary. And somehow people just seem to know that that's the job that was supposed to be. And it usually did. I retired from selling real estate in 1994. And when I did this, I decided this was the time for me to really study writing if I was ever going to do it. You know, don't get any younger. So I took some classes, and the first one I took was down in Venice at MCC, and the woman's name that taught was Charlie Briggs, and she taught a class on how to write your family history. And I really enjoyed that. It was so much fun, and I wrote, it's really a book too, but nobody's ever read it but me. But it got me into doing this, and I realized, you know, I like to do this. So the next class I took was at the community center, and this woman's name was Helen Nell. And Helen is not very much of an inspiration, at least she was not to me. She was very technically correct, and I got a good deal of that on what she had to offer, but I needed to have a little kick in the rear more than she was able to give me. So I was sitting at my computer one day and messing around with AOL, and I discovered that they have classes. So I began to investigate what they were. And I found this writing class called Writing the Novel. And it's taught by a man by the name of Larry Cruz. Now, some of you may know Larry, because as a matter of fact, he lives in Sarasota. But I didn't know that at the time. I mean, this is an all over the country class, and the people that were in this class were everywhere. We even had people from Alaska. So, but I signed up to take this class. And I want to tell you, he's the best teacher I've ever had in my life, bar none. And I learned more from him than I have from anybody. And it was harder than anything I ever took, including biochemistry. And that's pretty hard. But the funny thing about Larry is he's not a, quote, educator, unquote. He's not formally trained, which may be why he's so good. At least, I think it has something to do with it. Anyway, he was quite a taskmaster. We wrote, and we rewrote, and we wrote again. And he didn't mind telling you how bad it was, and to do it the third time, or the fifth time, or whatever. So, time went on, and 6 months passed, and the classes were over, and I had a half a book. So I, at that point, had this big decision to make. Was I just going to dump this in the door like I had the family history? Or was I going to really finish it? I decided to finish it. So my husband put a switch on my telephone in my office, and I shut the door. And he agreed not to bother me if the door was shut. And he did an awful lot of cooking. And bless his heart, I don't think he's not into that. But anyway, I did finally finish this book. It took me a year altogether. Then, after you have your book finished, what do you do with it? You know, you've got this wonderful thing, and it's a part of you, and you think, everybody in the world wants to read this. You know, it's just the best thing you've ever done. And so how are you going to get that accomplished? I was able to find a literary agent, and she worked with me, and still is working with me. So far, we have not sold it to any national publisher. But since I'm not getting any younger, I decided to go ahead and publish it myself, which is what I did. Ultimately, Ruth thinks that we will sell it. And we may. But if we don't, here's the book. So, it is fiction. There is, the only real people in here are my Uncle Charlie. He's a real person. And Guy Lutte. Any of you here know Guy Lutte? Well, he's in here, bless his heart. It's kind of just to kind of make it really realistic. There are a lot of places that you'll recognize as you read it, but I do want you to remember that it is fiction, and there are no people except those two that are real. They're all up here. Now, they're all my very good friends, and I'm well acquainted with them, and I love them, most of them. Some of them I don't like. I love most of them. But it is fiction, and it is a story about Mary Sue Gilbert, who is a real estate agent, and she has a friend who lists her house. And as this happens over and over and over and over again, on the island or anywhere. But the funny thing is that one day the doorbell rings, and this little 5-year-old girl shows up on the doorstep of Mary Sue's friend in the house. She didn't know she had a granddaughter, and this little girl says, "I'm your granddaughter." She hasn't seen her son in 20 years. She doesn't know where he is. She didn't know anything about this child, and she just appears. From that, we go into all sorts of convolutions to find where this child came from, who she is, and it gets involved in family history and finding the son, and many, many things that people wish were hidden would still stay hidden, come out, and it's, all of us have families, and we all know what the black sheep are, and we all know what those kind, and that's what's in this book, but it's all, excuse me, it's all fiction. So, part of it then goes to Lexington, because that's where I came from. And one of the things that Larry Cruz said when he was teaching this class was write about what you know. So, I ran out of Anna Maria, and so I brought in Lexington. And I think it gives it a little balance. And there are places in Lexington that any of you that are familiar with that area at all will have the same feeling there that you do here, because the specific places are mentioned, certainly. And that's it. I think I've covered everything I told you I would cover. Some of you here I know have read my book, and maybe if you rest of you, if you haven't, I would love for you to. And they are for sale if you'd be interested in purchasing one. Do you have any questions? $13.95 plus tax. Comes out to be $14.93.
How do you distribute the book?
You're looking at her. You're clear with the museum? I hope so. I hope so.
What season of the year was it when you first paid the number of fees? Was it
It was summertime, of course, because, you know, people from up north want to come in the wintertime. They did then as well as now. So the freebies were always in the summer.
You said you went into AOL to find this class. Did you take the whole class by computer?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. I didn't have to get dressed. I didn't have to go out. I didn't have to go to the dentist. I didn't have to go down to the community center or anywhere. I just sat right at my computer and took this class. It was wonderful. It was great.
I haven't read the book yet, but I certainly will. But what is the era of this
The present.
president?
Yeah, it's now.
Okay.
Now.
Francis, I know you have lots of energy and ideas. I wonder if you considered going a step further and publishing works from other authors.
I hadn't given that any thought, but you know, I never turned down a deal. Anything else? Yes, that's in the works. Mere students saying have all kinds of things that they're going to be doing. Well, I don't know whether it's a sequel, but the same protagonists will be doing other things.
Where, Mexico and here?
The next one will be in Tennessee as well as here. That's sort of my plan, you see.
Have you contacted Diane Yeager? Have you gone there, Francis, to a real bookstore? She loves to find out about local authors.
I think Ruth has been in to see her.
Okay. And Books A Million, and
Ruth's kind of got my agent is helping me with a lot of this, you know. I think she has.
did you ever meet Larry? Did you finally meet
Oh,
Larry?
yes. Oh, yes. He is a delight.
He is
a real delight.
Yeah.
And an absolutely wonderful teacher. I can't recommend him enough.
Didn't I read that it is for sale at a bookstore in Sarasota?
Yes.
I thought it was him.
Yes, the main bookshop in downtown Sarasota. And on the island here too. Maybe it will be in Sherman.
Yes,
Do you
sir.
think?
It is, yes, definitely.
Okay. Very good museum. Anything else? Thank you. Oh yes. I brought my partner here in crime, and that was sort of a joke, you see.
Yes, if that concludes the meeting, can I have a motion for adjournment, please?
So moved.
Second?